Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay. I wanted to do a video on the Keyshia Cole Ashanti versus that was on a few nights ago. Uh, my thoughts on it. I did other versus videos. The Patti LaBelle, uh, Gladys Knight one, and the Brandy and Monica one. Um, yeah, this one was interesting because um, in this one, in this one, first of all, Keisha Cole was mad late to it. It started off pretty late. Like they had to do it on Zoom because um, Ashanti had come down with COVID, so they had to cancel it. And this is the second attempt at doing it. And uh, they did it via Zoom, and it started off with an empty chair. Keisha Cole wasn't even there, and then her sound was off. You know what I mean? Like um, her audio wasn't coming through, so she was singing, and you weren't really hearing it on the other end. So it was like, damn, Keisha Cole really fucking up, you know. Like, could somebody please fix her audio? Um, but as far as the songs, I think Ashanti did a better job. She nailed her songs. It seemed like Keisha Cole was even dancing to Ashanti songs than her own songs. And some of the songs, uh, some of Keisha's songs was, they really wasn't hitting like that. You know what I mean? Like a lot of her shit was not really lively. Like she seemed like she was out of it. I know she was taking sips of Ciroc throughout the whole throughout the whole versus battle. It just seemed like she was a little drunk. You know what I mean? She in the middle of it, she had gotten up to go to the bathroom, and I thought that was kind of unprofessional. And one of her songs wasn't even wasn't even prepared on time. OT Genesis had to come out and give her song. She was just like, where's my song? Where's my song? It was really funny stuff. But as far as how they looked, man, they both looked really on point. Especially Keisha Cole had this low cut dress that you could almost see her whole titties. you know, and there's this one part where Ashanti's like, "Oh well, we don't want that show because almost Keisha Cole's breast almost came out of her dress." You know what I mean? So it was like Keisha almost had a wardrobe malfunction right there on the Zoom. Um, yeah, Ashanti played all of her hits, including "What's Love." Um, I always loved Ashanti, like listening to them Murder Inc. songs. Happy, foolish, mesmerized. Them shits with Ja Rule that she did back in the day. It takes me to a different place. You know, the early 2000s. You know what I mean? Like, um, I was just getting out of high school back then. I was going into college, and I was listening to a lot of Murder Inc. stuff. And what I really used to love about their videos is they would take old movies and remake them in the context of their video. For example, like Foolish, they did the Goodfellas song, and like Mesmerized, they did Grease. You know, Um, and don't forget too that a lot of Ashanti's vocals were on a lot of the songs, like "Ain't It Funny" and um, "I'm Real" remix that J Lo did. It was really Ashanti's vocals in the background, and Ashanti's really been doing music even before 2002, like way back when she was a teenager. You know what I mean? Like she was a real star of Murder Inc. Besides Ja Rule. I think Murder Inc. gets a bad rap and a bad reputation because when 50 Cent came out, he dissed Ja Rule. Him and Ja Rule had the battle, and then a lot of people felt like they wasn't really fucking with Murder Inc. like that no more like they used to, and they started to really front on Murder Inc. like they never really listened to their music. Like Between Me and You wasn't a bop, or Between Mesmerized wasn't a bop, or Down for You wasn't the shit. You know what I mean? Murder Inc. throughout the early 2000s, Murder Inc. had a ton of hits. Like I said, Ja Rule originally came out in the early 1990s, I mean late 1990s on the Rush Hour soundtrack. Can I Get Her with Jay Z, and and then from there, like after he came out with his first album, Vini Vidi Vici, he switched up his sound in the second album, and that was when he came up with that Murder Inc. sound. And a lot of people said, "Well, look at him, he's soft, he's singing on the song, he's singing on the hooks and shit." But wasn't 50 Cent singing on the hooks too? Wasn't 21 Questions a singer song? Wasn't Many Men Like That? You know what I mean? So come on, y'all judge Ashanti and Ja Rule by a different standard than what you judge 50 Cent. You know what I mean? Y'all all wanted it to be sheep and hop off the 50 Cent bandwagon. I mean, the Ja Rule murdering bandwagon. I was in junior high. A lot of y'all was all about Ja Rule and Ashanti and was holding up like this, Murder Inc. Uh, you know, uh, back in the day. So don't front like y'all wasn't, cause I remember 11th grade, 10th grade, bumping those Murder Inc. songs. You know what I mean? Nobody else from Murder Inc. ever really went nowhere. That's true. You know what I mean? But uh nah, not really. Lisa said, do I think Keyshia Cole and Ashanti was a good matchup to do versus? Um, Not really. Um, Keisha didn't really have that much traction in that era. You know what I mean, of the early 2000s. But I think Alicia Keys would have been a better match because Alicia Keys and Ashanti was kind of like in the early 2000s, at least in my playlist. The women that I was around, like, was really heavy Ashanti and Alicia Keys stuff more than Keisha Cole. Keisha Cole to me always came off as more of a Mary J. Blige type wannabe, honestly. Um, I like the song "I Should Have Cheated." You know what I mean? Because it's a song that really resonated with me. Because that time, uh, I'm not ashamed to say that I was cheated on at that time in the mid 2000s. And even though I'm a dude, you know what I mean? Like, still, you know what I mean? That's the song had meaning to me. You know, back then we're talking about like 2004, 2005 ish. Um, My ex was really doing me dirty at that time. And I felt like I was being the faithful one, and what Keisha says in the song, you know, resonated with me. But at the same time, I didn't really listen to a lot of her music, and women around me didn't really um listen to a lot of. I said, who do I think she should? I said Alicia Keys would have been a good match because she had a lot. Alicia Keys had so many hits too back in them days. Um, you know, we're talking about the early 2000s, the noughties. You know what I mean? And in the R&B arena, when R&B still existed, when it came to female vocalists, at that time, um, it was Ashanti and Alicia that was really dominating the airwaves. I'm not gonna say J Lo because um, she was more of a pop artist. I never really considered her R&B, and when she did cross over, um, she crossed over because of Ashanti and because of her affiliation with Murder Inc. But I would have yeah, that's another thing. Keisha Cole was a little bit too tipsy, Lisa said, and I felt that too. I felt that immediately after, like, you don't have to watch the whole video to immediately get the sense that Keisha Cole heart wasn't in it and she was just doing it for a paycheck, and that she felt like versus was a medium to get her new music out there. New music, not to really focus on the nostalgia stuff from the early 2000s, but she wanted to use it as a vehicle to get her new music out there. And why I say that is because um she wasn't able to get that new song that she made. Like, the verse was almost over, and she was like, "Well, let me get my new song in there." You know what I mean? So, like, she wasn't really taking it serious. She was sipping throughout the whole thing and dancing throughout the whole thing, grabbing her titties. You know what I mean? Like, looking at her phone, really distracted. Like, your heart really ain't in this shit. You know what I mean? Like she just had too much in her. Lisa's absolutely right. She just had too much. You know what I mean? Like, you could tell when somebody is intoxicated, when a person is really intoxicated. You know what I mean? Like, and they shouldn't even be there. Yeah, they played the new song, but they almost didn't. They almost they almost didn't. Lisa, go back and look. They almost didn't, and she wanted to make sure that they had the new song in there. You know what I mean? Because Keisha Cole, let's face it, she she had like one or two hit songs. She wasn't really, even back in the day, she wasn't really popping like that. Um, I don't know why they chose to match her with Ashanti. You know what I mean? Maybe, like I said, Alicia wasn't available. You know, you know what I mean. So they needed somebody. But when it come to early 2000s R&B artists, for guys it's a Morion and Usher, and for women it's Ashanti and Alicia. You know what I mean? So in R&B, just like if it was to be hip hop, you know what I mean, you would have Dipset and G Unit, or Murder Inc. and G Unit, but that would never happen because 50 and Jai hate each other. like really hate each other for real. you know, you know. So you be better off with Dipset and G Unit. But yeah, they played Keisha Cole's new song. They played another song with her and Remy Ma and French Montana, which I never really heard that one before, but it was pretty cool. You know what I mean? But yeah, Lisa's absolutely right. Keisha had too much in her. She was too tipsy. She wasn't focused. Like, um, kind of sad in a way because it's like, uh, yeah, they could. Lisa, they 50 and she said 50 and Jack could do a verses. They just have to be in separate locations, but they would never do that. you know, it's like Barack Obama and that's like getting Barack Obama and Trump to do something together. They would never do that. You know, like it's one thing professional jealousy, but it's another thing actual hatred. You know what I mean? So it would be cool to see, but it's never gonna happen. Versus don't even have that much money. You know, you know what I mean. I think we get a Donald Trump and Barack Obama event before we get a Ja Rule and 50 event. I would like to see it. Yeah, some people are more. If it says, well, Jeezy did a versus with the guy he didn't like. Some people are more mature than others, though. So you gotta understand. Um, 50 and Ja, part of their, especially 50, like part of his shtick is that he doesn't like Ja Rule. But you never know. Stranger things have happened. That people thought Monica and Brandy would never happen, and Monica and Brandy happened. So um, you never know. It's possible. It could happen one day, but I wouldn't hold my breath. How about Mariah and J Lo? That's another one that people say is impossible, but you never know. People always wanted Mariah and J Lo to do something together, but I remember the time Mariah said they asked about J Lo. Mariah said, "I don't know who that is." Yeah, they are two different talents, but the point is they hate each other. And so that's the point I'm trying to make. They don't. There, there's a real rivalry there. Even American Idol knew it. That's why they swapped one for the other at one time. Like when there's real animosity between people, it's more interesting than when it's just professional jealousy. But when you're the top artist, would I like to see do a verses together? I'd say it, group wise, Dipset and G Unit because at that time in the early 2000s, when it came to two rap groups, you had your camps. You had your Dipset camps, the people that was into the Dipset stuff, and people that were into the G Unit, the more G Unit side of it, and they were like neck and neck with each other. So in terms of groups, those two, uh, Dipset and G Unit. But I don't know if that'll ever happen because uh, I don't even think the members of Dipset even get along. amongst themselves anymore like that. Jim Jones and Joel Santana and Cameron. Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston, yeah, but they already did a song together. So, but verses would have been cool. Aaliyah, and um, Aaliyah and Brandy would have been nice too. TLC, and Destiny's Child, if it was possible. Um, There's another one. Eminem and anybody. Eminem and Jay Z. Eminem. I said this to my friend Sean one time. I said Eminem, Aaliyah and Brandy. I said, yeah, Aaliyah and Brandy, because they came out around the same time. You know what I mean? So, uh, uh, one time I said to my friend Sean, I said, "Yo, if Jay Z and Eminem did one, it would break the whole entire internet. The whole internet would shut down. Because they're talking about the two biggest rappers of all time. You know what I mean? Like for real, the two biggest living legends of all time. The whole internet would break. So it's Jay Z and Eminem, and those are two guys that like two of the biggest names in hip hop ever. Jay Z and Nas, they don't have the number of hits, same number of hits as each other, and they already did a battle, and Nas already won. But Jay Z and Nas, nah, I say Jay Z and Eminem because yeah, Jay Z and Nas are mentioned together in the same breath a lot because of the beef they had. But um, Eminem would bring if Eminem would do a versus, he would bring a whole new audience uh, to 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 the platform. You know what I'm saying? That's why I said it would break the internet because he's on a whole nother level when it comes to rap. You know, like even now people don't really fuck with him like that, but his followers they fuck with him heavy. You, you know what I mean? Like they hang on this every word. So if they heard shit he was doing the verses, uh, you know what I mean? They would definitely be on it. I don't really like Eminem. I only thought really his three first three albums were good. After that, he was just shit to me. You know, you know what I mean? But like after the Eminem show, I really couldn't mess with him no more. But I'm just saying for the versus brand itself, he would bring a whole new crowd to it. You know what I'm saying? Because he just that much like there's in terms of popularity, not in skill, but in terms of popularity, there's other rappers and then there's him up here, all the way up here in terms of popularity. you, you, you know, you know what I mean? Like for obvious reasons because of his race. You know what I mean? But I don't want to bring that up. But yeah, because he appeals to a wider audience, wider and wider. His popularity level is higher than most rappers. Because I remember going to school and kids that wouldn't even listen to rap, they'd be just straight rock and roll fans. And they'd be like, I don't listen to rap, but I like Eminem. You know, I don't like no other rapper, just like Eminem. You know what I mean? Girls too. You know what I mean? Like, they would listen. Girls too. They would look girls too. Yeah, whiter, and whiter. Girls too. They would listen to the NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, and they listen to Eminem too. They would love Eminem. Oh, they have Eminem posters and all. Yeah, and they don't know all that. They don't know the name of any other rapper, but Eminem they know. It's like with wrestling. You got people in wrestling, they don't know no other wrestler, but they know The Rock. Yeah. Oh, The Rock? Yeah, I know. I know him. You know. So yeah, he brings a different audience. Eminem. You know what I mean? So and then Jay Z, the people that is true hip hop fans, the true hip hop heads of all races, they fuck with Jay Z. They'll follow Jay Z to the end of the earth. Should they expand their audience uh, to include different styles of music? No, I don't. Lisa, I don't think they should. Because, like, maybe if they did, they would do Backstreet Boys and sync pop, a pop audience, maybe. But other types of music doesn't really, well, because I was just going to say, other types of music don't really lend itself to competition. Hip hop is born into a competitive environment. R&B is very competitive. Maybe pop, but um, what'll happen then is that the black artists will get taken out of it because what ends up happening here in the United States with stuff is that black people invent stuff and other races take it, and then people forgot that black people even invented it. You know what I mean? We know there's cultural appropriation to a high degree. You know, what I mean? Look at rock and roll. You know what I mean? So yeah, I guess they should. I mean, I guess they could expand their audience, but we live in a time, Lisa, that if that were to happen, people would cry cultural appropriation. I think so. Yeah, maybe they could expand their music. Maybe Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera is definitely one that if they go to the pop world, they could do that. Limp Bizkit versus Corn if they go to rock and roll. You know what I mean? Because they were out around the same time. Fred Durst, and the Corn. Kids used to listen to that. Well, the Linkin Park guy has passed away, so they can't do that. But um, I, where I went to school, there was a lot of fans of rock and roll um, music and pop. So I'm pretty familiar with like Kid Rock, Limp Bizkit, people like that. So yeah, maybe they could expand to that, but I think just stick in the urban category for now, anyway. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Because in music, unfortunately, it happens in all aspects of culture, but in music, uh, you know, Black artists have been getting pushed to the side for generations, unfortunately. So, um, they have something that they could the the older urban fans could appreciate and look back on with nostalgia. There's plenty of nostalgia tours for. Um, I hate to put race into it because even though Eminem is a white guy, I consider him part of the urban culture. But there's plenty of nostalgic tours and type stuff for white artists. I mean, white musicians never had a problem where their fans don't remember their history. People that I grew up with that were fans of rock and roll, they knew who the Beatles were, they knew who the Rolling Stones were, you know, they knew who Aerosmith was. But black musics, black musicians never really got the recognition they deserved. After a certain age, people forgot about them. And that's why I think it's best to keep it to the urban audience. Because, like, who was our age listening to The Temptations or Stevie Wonder or Patti LaBelle or people that came before them? Yeah, I did. I covered it in the video. So that's why I think it's different, Lisa. Because I remember kids that I went to school with, they had Led Zeppelin shirts, they had Aerosmith shirts, they had Def Leppard shirts. And they weren't born during those era, the 60s, 70s, the early 80s. They weren't born for that, but they appreciated their parents' music. Yeah, you did, I did too, but a lot of kids didn't. Hip hop never remembers its greats. R&B rarely remembers its greats. And if those greats should be celebrated in the same way that rock and roll artists like Mick Jagger are celebrated. It's not true for everybody, but black artists have never gotten their due. And this is a way for black and urban artists to get their due with the younger fans, exposing them to older music. Like if they had verses back in the day, could you imagine the Four Tops, the Temptations? you know, like for example, the Beatles came out with an album in 1999 of their greatest hits, and it shot to number one. If the Temptations had done that, it would have barely scratched the top 50. If the Miracles had done that, it would have barely scratched the top 50. So hip hop and R&B doesn't really have that sense of history like rock and roll has with its pioneers and its luminaries. It's always like, oh, he's old, he's or she's played out. You know, like why is she still around? Hip hop doesn't appreciate its history, and R&B doesn't appreciate its history in the same way that other musics do. Because you got people like Little Yachty disrespecting the legends like Biggie and Tupac. Would that even be tolerated in rock and roll, in pop? Do people like, does Lady Gaga go up there and be like, you know what, Frank Sinatra, Tony Bennett, they all whack. No, she does songs with Tony Bennett. She 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 sings songs of Frank Sinatra, people that was important in her genre of music that she pays respects to. Hip hop don't pay respects to the ones that came before. R&B rarely does either. So this is a way for R&B and hip hop artists to pay respects to their history. So why should white artists jump on this? You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying white in terms of their skin color or their race. I mean in the type of music they sing. Can't the urban audience and the black audience just have something just for us? For once, TLC do need to do a versus. I agree. Because I agree with you, Lisa, about expanding the audience, but at the same time, I don't want it to get so swamped that pretty soon it's all Garth Brooks versus, um, Brad Paisley shit. Yeah, but you'd be surprised how many kids co-sign what he said. The sense of history is not there in hip hop and R&B. You ask your average hip hop person, kid today, who's a fan of the people today, and if they don't really have parents that are educating them on the roots of their music, they won't know who these old heads are. They'll be like, because look how people disrespect Lord Jamar on the Vlad channel when he was on the Vlad channel. They'd be like, oh, Lord Jamar, this old ass head always talking mad shit. Would somebody on a rock and roll channel do that to Steven Tyler? I don't think so. Would somebody on a country channel do that to George Strait? No. Would somebody on a pop channel do that to Tony Bennett or Frank Sinatra again? You know what I mean? Like, or Elton John? No. They respect those people because those people paved the way. That's what I always. Lord Jamar is a rapper from the early '90s name, from the group Brand Nubian, Lisa, who is a conscious rapper. You know what I mean? And people didn't agree with his political views about LGBT issues or whatever. And that's one thing, you could disagree with somebody, but acknowledge his. No, not Lord Jamal. Lord Jamar. Jamar. You could disagree with his his political views. That's true. I disagree with him too, but you don't have to disrespect the man and what he's accomplished. That's one of the things I love about other styles of music. And I always loved about rock and roll. They would always acknowledge their great ones. Conscious rappers don't last at all in rap. Yeah, that's true. They don't. Um, Look at Kendrick Lamar. Look at J. Cole. So yeah, they don't. But the point is that there was a time in hip hop in the late '80s and early '90s, and even the mid '90s with Lauryn Hill, that conscious rap was a thing. Hip hop was built on black consciousness. If it wasn't for the Black Power movement, there wouldn't even be a hip hop. You know what I mean? So um, the Dead Poets Society and all that. So you got to think just like R&B has its roots in gospel. Hip hop has its roots in the Black Power movement and the political activism of the 60s and 70s that came out of the Black Panther Party and the Nation of Islam. You know what I mean? So these are the roots of these are the roots of our experience and the roots of our music. And if you don't respect the roots, Malcolm X said, if you don't love the roots of the tree, you can't love the tree. you know, you know. So you know what I mean. If it wasn't for the roots, you wouldn't be here today. So you have to respect the roots of the music in order to respect the music. You know what I mean? People can't act like Takashi 6ix9ine invented hip hop. You know what I mean? Or Lil Pump. People like that. So they allow people to disrespect the culture. That's not cool. You know what I mean? You gotta respect your elders. You could disagree with them, sure, but you disagree with love. You don't disagree with hatred and bitterness and call them irrelevant. Why? What are you laughing about? These other people act like Takashi 6ix9ine and Lil Pump invented hip hop. Well, Lil Pump hobnobs around with people like Ben Shapiro that say rap isn't music. That completely disrespect, our culture and what we stand for. You know, that could sit actually across, yeah, that could sit actually across from somebody like a Ben Shapiro and sit there and agree with the shit that he's saying about our culture, something that he doesn't even understand, that he wouldn't even begin to comprehend. You know, the struggles that rap was born out of, the struggles of poverty, the struggles of racism, the struggles of discrimination that hip hop came out of. The hood, you know what I mean? Nobody goes up into his synagogue and disrespects his culture and his beliefs and his way of life. You know what I mean? So Lil Pump, people like Lil Pump shouldn't even be associated with people like that. Just being associated with individuals like that, they get you kicked out of the hip hop culture. Because it would in any other culture in society. If I went tomorrow to Iran, a place that disrespects America and degrades America, people would say I'm anti American. People wouldn't let me back in, and rightfully so. You got Vlad, culture vultures like Vlad trying to make a buck off the culture. Doesn't even care about the culture or the people that it represents. Always trying to put out negativity in hip hop. Yeah, Queen Latifah versus MC Light, that would be a good one. LL Cool J versus somebody. So to answer your question, Lisa, no, I don't think versus should be more inclusive. It's a way to celebrate hip hop, and R&B and our culture. They have other. If they want to have some for them, invent something. You know what I mean? Like people don't come on people don't come on rock and roll channels and pop channels saying, well, why don't you have more rappers on there? Why doesn't Joe Rogan have a lot of rappers on there? He doesn't cater to that audience. You know what I mean? Like, you want to have something for y'all that's similar to Versus? Invent your own. You know what I mean? Which they probably will. They'll see the profitability of it, and they'll have Joe Rogan hosting musical competitions with white artists or something like that. You know what I mean? Because we had 106 in Park, they had TRL back in the day. And even though TRL was out before 106 in Park, 106 in Park was way more lit than TRL. Because they weren't playing our people in TRL back in the day. And if there was, it was just barely. Right. Instead of verses, lyrics. You know what I mean? Like, people say, oh, I'm surprised somebody hasn't said already that um, verses should be more inclusive of different kind of artists. Some of those Beckys and Chads will start bitching and complaining. Oh, what? Why isn't Britney Spears on it, man? Or why isn't uh, Kid Rock on it, or Linkin Park, or Fred Durst, or you know? But see, when they have exclusivity in their culture, they just say, "Well, sorry, man, we don't cater to that audience." You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? So it's only fair. Like, for example, why was there no African Americans really on Friends? And Friends was just a rip off of Living Single anyway. You know what I mean? Like, Living Single did it first and did it better than Friends. People in their mid 30s living in New York City single. That's the same thing Friends was. The exact same thing. Somebody posted that the other day. They were like, yo, what's the worst 90s sitcom? And I said Friends, because it was a complete rip off of Living Single. Complete rip off. So, like Lisa said, they'll come up with lyrics instead of verse. They'll come up with something like that, and they'll claim that it was an original idea that they came up with. Oh, we decided that in light of COVID, we want to give artists a new a new financial outlet. Older artists. you know, which is exactly what Versus is doing, but they'll come out with their own version, and they'll say that they invented it. Because look at the Karen thing. Karen originally started with the black community and the urban community, and then all of a sudden, I started seeing Karen memes in radical right wing groups. Like, what the hell? Yeah, you know. But yeah, I enjoyed this verse. I enjoyed this verses, but I think Keisha Cole was off her game. But yeah, thank you guys for supporting my channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more versus content and reviews. Peace.